Right?
Okay, we're good? Okay. And so we're going to start, just as a warning, we will be starting on time every day because we have an online audience and we have a schedule an agenda when we've told them we'll be back on. The end times are flexible, but the start times are on time. So make sure you're here and ready to go right at 8 o'clock because we have a full schedule. And then like when we come back from lunch, when we say we're starting at 1 or 1:15, we are starting at 1 or 1:15. So just make sure you're back by that time. If it means bring your lunch, that's fine. I'm going to bring my lunch because I can't manage to get out and back with some other stuff we have to do. So we're going to do quick introductions of those of us who are the cadre. We're not going to do you guys right now because the audience can't hear it. So we'll do you when we get to the first practice section. We'll introduce who's here. So Dawn, tell them who you are and what you do.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Sanchez. I work for the Pike National Forest in Colorado, out of Colorado Springs. Also work on one of our region's Type 2 teams. So on Rocky Mountain Team Black as the PIO. Been in fire for 22 years. Been a PIO probably for 15 of those. So a little bit of experience there on the front range. But glad to be here. Thank you.
And let me go back here and let me just turn this. I can't take it off.
Good morning.
There's a tether.
My name is Serena Fugit, and I'm with the National Incident Management Organization with Chris on the Portland team. And I will be behind the scenes here, so trying to take questions online and keep a pulse of what's going on there for folks out watching the live stream.
Okay. Put my headset back on so that you can hear me. Sorry, we didn't have Serena on camera. She's behind the camera. So I'm Chris Erickson. I'm a Type 1 Public Information Officer with the National Incident Management Organization. Who in here actually knows what NEMO is? Really?
Wow.
Oh my God, this is
That's impressive.
I've never had this big of an audience that actually knew what we were. For those that don't, National Incident Management Organization, we are the only full-time incident management teams in the country. The other incident management teams are collateral duty. They have other jobs. They come together as a team. They go back to their job. We have no other job except to be NEMO. When we're not doing fires, we are Adrian. It's for her. We do a lot of training. And so things like this, where we're in a classroom teaching people, we like to take it national if we can, because there are so many people that can't get this kind of training. There's not a lot of dollars available for it. So we try to take it as far as we can, hence the live stream. And it's a little inconvenient in that we can't be completely spontaneous, but we can, for the most part, accept the start times. And these are being, just so you know, for everyone online and here, these are being saved in subject matter chunks. This first one will be Google Tools. And then we'll end it, and we'll practice here, and then we'll start up again with a new one on Facebook. So when you go back, if you go back and look at them, you'll see each one in a 45 or hour minute chunk. So if you want to watch the part you want to remind yourself about, it'll be there in a small chunk. I'm also planning to remind myself how to download videos off Facebook, and which I just can't remember because I don't do it that often. And then I'm going to try to load them to a YouTube channel so that they're all in one channel. That'll be easier to access. But for the time being, they'll be on the social media PIO page. So mostly we have housekeeping sorts of things. Well, let me finish with, I'm a PIO on the Portland NEMO team. There are 4 NEMO teams. They each have just 7 command and general staff. There's only 28 of us in the country on 4 different teams. Serena and I are on the Portland team. The names used to mean something. They don't really anymore. Except for identifying which team. It could be ABC. It doesn't really matter. But I've been doing this for 84. Probably some of you weren't born then, right? But for a long time, and I worked in fire, as in college. It was a summer job being on a crew. But after that, I realized that there were better things to do with my life than do that. So I come from a background in corporate public relations work, in journalism. I was a reporter for 14 years. But I've always worked in fire in the summer. And so now, once this became a full-time job, I specialized in this thing. So I've been with NEMO now, coming up end of May, it'll be 11 years that I've been on the Portland NEMO team. So, what we're planning today is to give you a broad and in some cases detailed look at the tools that we use on incidents. There are a lot of social media tools. Unless they serve a purpose on an incident, not bothering with them. For instance, I've spent a lot of time at the behest of my children to figure out how to use Snapchat on a fire, and I can't. We're not using Snapchat. We're not teaching Snapchat. I can't figure out how to use Vine. I never found a reason for an 8-second video. I suppose there may be one, but I haven't found it. So we don't use it. We try all kinds of things to see if they have an application to actually working on incidents. So all we're focusing on here is things that are traditionally used on incidents. That doesn't mean that you won't come to another team or go out with Dawn and they're trying a new tool, and you know, they may want you to try something totally different. I'm still trying to find a way to do a Pinterest project on a fire. That's my goal, if I can do that. So far, I have not managed to do that. But so we're not using these tools because it's fun. We're using these tools because they serve a purpose, because they meet our objectives in our overall communication strategy. So we're sticking with showing you the tools that are most commonly used. We'll give you some skills at it. I want to disabuse you of the notion that we are giving you the right way to do it. We are giving you a way to do it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Dawn and I may have different ways of doing it. What she does on her team is going to be different than what I probably do on my team. So there isn't a solid right answer, this is what you have to do. But we're going to give you some good guidelines that if you show up with those skills, at least we'll be pretty well in the game. They may say, well, we don't do that on our team. Okay, that's fine. Then you don't have to do it on their team. But if you go a lot, and it's a skill that, Dawn probably has the same problem. We are really short people with the skills that know how to use social media on incidents.
Very short.
So if you have these skills, you can be a 3 and go anywhere in the country. If you're a 3 and you don't have these skills, you're going to go locally until you're at least a 2 or a 1 trainee, because it's hard for 3s to get out nationally. They mostly get out locally because there are a lot of them. Let's see. Okay, a couple things. You should have access to a folder that was sent to your Gmail account. It says student folder, and it was sent to the Gmail account that you gave us when you took the questionnaire. If you don't have a Gmail account, you won't have access to it, because I don't believe it'll let you open it if you don't have a Gmail account. The folder has 3 things in it. It has 3 other folders inside it. One is, and none of these matter except, you don't need them immediately. One says final scenario. Just leave that one alone. The other one says practice materials. And all those is things for you to use to practice with if you don't have them on your computer. There's some press releases, some photos, some JPEGs, some all kinds of stuff in there. If you need to practice uploading or downloading or converting or doing all those things to it, we put some stuff in there for you. It doesn't, I don't even know what it's of. They're just general press releases that we have from various incidents. Because sometimes when you're trying to make a post, you need a bunch of text. Instead of having to write it, we just gave you something you can copy and paste in there. Then there's a folder called Student Resources. That's for you for later, and partly for now. There is an agenda in there if you need to go home or print it at your hotel or your home or wherever, if you want to have the agenda with you so you know what we're doing. There's also some logos and things that are commonly used, and there's how-to manuals. There's some lessons learned. There's all kinds of stuff in there. And we'll leave that there, and we can keep adding to it. But I suggest that once you learn how to do this, because the lovely Dawn will tell you how to do this if you don't already know, but you're going to move it you'll find it in your Gmail under Shared With Me. If you can either go to the link or you'll find it in your drive under Shared With Me, move it to my drive. That way, if I move the folder, you might still lose it even if you move it. Now that I think about it, your best bet is download it on your computer. Just download the whole folder. That way, for the resources, especially the student resources. Okay, so if you need to go back to them, and that's the thing about Drive, is if I move my folder from which I have sent you a link, you're not going to be able to get to it anymore. So I don't plan on moving it, but if I do, I don't want to leave you high and dry. Please, online and in here, ask questions. And we will, when you ask a question in here, we're going to repeat it because the online audience probably won't hear it. So we'll repeat your question. And if you're online, go ahead and send your questions. Serena's monitoring the account, and she can answer. She'll answer as many questions as she can right herself. And if it's something that she thinks everybody ought to hear, or a question that's of interest to the whole class, we'll get that information and we'll read it into the room. Remember, those online, there is a delay. It's about 15-second delay from where we are in the classroom. So try to ask your question right away if you think of it. It may take a little bit for us to answer it. It's best, obviously, to be here in person because we can help everybody practice. And the people at home, you're going to have to practice on your own. We'll tell you what the expectation is for what you should do in this practice, but that's it. Let's see. I think that's it. Do you have anything else?
The only thing I think I have is just to, Chris already mentioned it, but remember that all the teams out there are different. Everybody does things different. So I'm going to go through the way that I use things. Chris is going to hopefully jump in and talk about how she uses them. And it could be something completely different for you guys if you go somewhere else or if you work with a different team. So again, no right or wrong. It's just different ways of doing things. I feel like I still learn. We have our way of doing things on our team, but I still learn from folks on how to do things. And some of this is going to be basic. So I know there's some advanced people watching online, and there's probably some advanced people in here too. So we're going to start with the basics because we still struggle to get folks that understand the basics.
At all?
Very light.
Oh, you need to move that up in front of your mouth more. Sorry.
Right there.
You have to keep going.
Sorry about that. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, basics. So bear with us with the basics. We're going to start out at the basics and maybe get some more advanced stuff.
One other thing I forgot to mention. On here, you'll see for those online elsewhere, I don't know if you can see it, but we're using a hashtag that we put on the Facebook page so that if you want to go back and if you do a search on Facebook and use the hashtag, it'll bring all the videos up at one time. Is your mic on?
Yeah. No.
That's why it's not on.
That's why.
Okay, now she's on. Okay, but the hashtag that we're using is hashtag NC for North Carolina, SM for social media 2019. So if you guys want to post something about this class, this is one class where we encourage you to be online and posting things about class. You're welcome to do that. Please use the hashtag so that people can find information about it. Again, it's hashtag NC for North Carolina, SM, all caps, NCSM 2019. Okay? All right. So we're going to go ahead and start into the first thing we're going to cover. Dawn's going to take you through is about Google tools.
All right, so I'm going to cover some of the Google tools that we use on fires. How many of you guys work pretty regularly in Google? Just kind of a handful. How many of those of you that raise your hands work more than with just the basic email? Do you work farther into Google? Okay, so everybody that raised their hand kind of works into Google. So okay. So where we're starting out, I think a lot of you guys, or hopefully everybody's got into Google and created an account, right? Okay. So what I'm going to work in, an account that I use back at home on my forest. We have our own PIO account. Because there's a lot of files in here, I wanted you guys to see kind of what the file structure looks like. We're also going to touch on FireNet later in the class, so it's going to be very close to this, so we'll kind of reiterate some of this stuff later on. But within our account, so to get to your account, google.com, you can see up here, right now this is Chris's computer, so we're logged in with myself and with Chris, and you can toggle back and forth. So in Google, you used to not be able to toggle back and forth. You would be able to be in one account. And if you went to a different Google product, it wouldn't let you log in with somebody else. So now it is working this way. So for instance, if I went to email, because this is her default account, you can see right there where it says default. It's going to go to Chris, but you can go in and you just toggle back into the account that you want to work in. This to me is one of the bigger hang-ups when you start working on fires, because you start getting into Google accounts, you have your own Google account, and you have to really pay attention to what account you're in, and that's going to be with this logo up here. So once you get into Google, you have your Gmail here, right there, and then you have this little waffle or these little squares up at the top. So that's where you're going to find all the apps within Google. So once you're logged in, this is going to look a little different for everybody. This is a menu that Google goes ahead and makes for you. So it's what you work in. In this account, we use voice a lot. Now, when I get into other accounts, voice usually isn't in there. I have to go searching for it, or I have to type it in. So this one is a little unusual from what you're going to see with the Google Voice. So once you get into here, you can go into whatever these quick links are. If what you're looking for is not there, you go into more and you try to find what you're looking for. And if not, you can go to even more from Google. So those are the basic navigation things that we've got within Google. So Google, when we go on fires, is one of the first things that I do when we go on fires. So if I'm going to a new start, a new incident that's going to probably be type 2 or it's going to be long duration, the first thing I'm going to do is create a Google account for that. And the reason I do that is because with Google, you have Google Drive, you have Google Voice, and you have all these products that we can use. And if you can get started using it from the get-go, it's much easier when the team comes in, or as people start coming in. It's much harder to switch gears if you start with something different. So how many of you have used Google Voice? How many of you don't know what Google Voice is? Okay. You have to go in. I haven't figured out how to self-populate that menu. So, even more. So I went into that even more, and here's where you get into all of the features that are available. And Google Voice is going to be towards the bottom. There. So it's way down in the list. So you go to Google Voice, and again, here's the toggle here. You see it put me in Chris's account, and she doesn't have a Google Voice number. So I go to mine, and it'll switch over. One of the things I like to do personally is I like to have two browsers that I work in. One browser is one Google account, and the other browser is the other Google account. For me, that helps me keep everything perfect. I mean, everything separate. So, but with Google Now and Google Chrome, you can toggle back and forth. So, Google Voice. So, Google Voice is a place where you can make a virtual phone number, and that virtual phone number can be given to anybody. And on the Google side, on our account side, we can add phone numbers to that. So, for instance, if you have a Google Voice number and I come in as a PIO, I can connect that number to my cell phone. So if somebody calls that number, it comes to my cell phone, or it comes to a landline, or whatever number we attach to that. You can have, I believe it's up to 5 numbers in there at a time attached to that Google Voice number. That has a voicemail. You can do a personal greeting. You can do a do not disturb. So if you go into a meeting, or if you guys go to bed at night, you can turn it to do not disturb, and it goes straight to a voicemail. There's a lot of settings within Google Voice that you can use instead of just giving your phone number on every press release. And then you have the one phone or the one landline. That helps if another team comes in. That helps if you have multiple other PIOs. You can switch that from person to person. So Google Voice is big for me. When we talk about FireNet, we don't have Google Voice. So even though we're working towards a FireNet system, which again we'll touch later, I still create a Google account so I can have Google Voice. And that's one of the first things I do. That way we don't have numbers floating all over the place, and then when a team comes in or you transition it, we don't have to change that phone number on the public. So within Google Voice, there's this thing called legacy voice, and in every Google product, I believe there is a legacy version. So Google changed their products 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And a lot of us are used to working in the old way that things were. Some of the options aren't available. So Google Voice is changing quite often, as are the other Google products. I personally like to work in legacy. So it's the same kind of functions. It just appears different. It's what I'm used to. And the tools that I like to use are here. So as you guys play around with some of these tools, you can go in and figure out which one works better for you. So within Voice, so for my forest, we have a central phone number, this Google Voice number that we've had for years. And the media has that number right there. That goes on all of our press releases. We do 1 week rotation, and every week we have somebody that's on that line. So you have your Google Voice number. Now when you show up on a fire, you can create, once you've created the account, you can create a number. And when you do that, so Google picks the phone number for you. You can try to get a local phone number. That's what we usually do. That's local to my area there. If I were here, I would try to find a local number here. It's getting harder and harder to get Google Voice numbers. So last year we ran into a couple situations where there was no number to be had, even in the state. I did a little Google searching, and there's some sort of system reset at 8 o'clock at night every night. So numbers that aren't being used go available. And sure enough, at 8 o'clock we're able to pick up a number. So there's little tricks to Google that you have to learn, and it changes all the time. But Google Voice is a big one. Unfortunately, getting harder and harder to get numbers. So within Voice, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, correct. Thank you for clarifying that. So you have your number, you have your voicemail. You can change this stuff. You can put a pin on the voicemail. Lots of settings within Google Voice. Turning call screening. So if you turn on call screening, when the person calls, they say, please say your name after the tone. And that call is ringing to the number attached. And when you pick up, it says you have a call from, and the person that repeated their name, or said their name, and then it says to press 1 to accept, or to send a voicemail. You can turn that off. That tends to scare people away sometimes. So we always turn it off, and it rings straight in. And whoever picks up that phone is the one that you have to remember you're attached to that Google number. So the other thing you can do, I think the default is it displays the caller's number on the caller ID when that comes into your phone. You can change that to display Google Voice number. So for us, we usually change it to that because we know that that's the Google number coming in. So we answer it appropriately. You have your Do Not Disturb. You can send missed calls to your Gmail. So it gives you an email every time you have a missed call. And then a couple other functions here. And like I said, in the new Google Voice, those change from time to time. So you have to get in there and kind of be current with some of this stuff. So for now, still, Google Voice is free. And we hope that they don't start charging. To get a second Google Voice number, you do have to pay. So here's your inbox, and these are all of our missed calls, and it's clearly the off season because we haven't gotten many calls. And then you have your voicemails in here. One of the big things is that when those voicemails come in, it will it does an auto translate into text, and so the text can be quite off sometimes. So get in there and listen to the voicemail, especially if it gives you a phone number. Make sure you double check that's really what they said in that voicemail. because it may be different. And it's quite entertaining sometimes when you've worked some long hours. So within that voicemail, you can categorize those and make sure if you're in there, you know what the rules are for that team. If you look at it and you don't make a call back, you probably want to mark that unread, or you probably want to put it on a list somewhere. So one of the things we want to make sure people don't do, and this goes for emails too, is you go in and read it and then just leave it and leave it read. Then nobody's going to go in there and get that email and actually address whatever that issue is. So there should be rules set in place when you work within these tools. So texts, so yes.
Going back, when I went down and I clicked on it, the first question it's got for me is for personal use or for work.
Okay.
The personal use, the free one. When I clicked on the work one, and it wants at least $10 a month or whatever. So
That's a new question. I have not seen that question yet. So probably would be personal. Thank you for bringing that up. And like I said, one of the big things to remember is that Google changes constantly, and these tools change constantly. I have never seen that, and we create Google numbers all the time. So the question was, tell me one more time what that. He tried to log in and get a Google Voice.
yeah, I'm doing it through my account on this tablet, and then it had two choices for either for personal use or for work.
So he had two choices when he went to create a Google Voice number, and it was for personal use or for work. And the first one wanted money, right? So for work, they wanted money. And for personal, they let him create the number for free. Yeah. So I haven't seen that. Have you? So that's a new one. Thank you.
When you set up your Google Voice phone number, what do you have to do to get it involved in your phone?
When you set it up, you have to attach it to a phone number to start with. So that either is your cell phone or your landline. The other thing I caution on Google Voice is when you attach that Google Voice number to your cell phone, at some point, they don't let you attach any more numbers. Mine, it won't let me attach a Google Voice to my cell phone anymore because I have so many accounts. So we have to use somebody else. So I don't know what that number is. I've been flagged now, for sure. Did you have something, Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to run to the point and walk over. Don't use the mouse to point at the screen because the online audience, they can't see it very well. So just you have to walk over.
Can you guys see this?
No, that's it. You have to walk over and say,
Oh, okay.
This area or this.
Gotcha.
Area. Sorry, just a tech.
No, you're fine. This is so those of you that are, well, I guess for the people here and online, you'll see things that work and don't work, and those are things like pointers, and you can see this pretty well here, but when you're online, you can't see it. And I carry 3 different pointer colors, because sometimes with maps, you can see red, sometimes you can see green, and sometimes you can see this purple color. So make sure if you're doing a live stream that the people at home can see what it is you're trying to put up. So thank you, Chris. So the text function, I think the first time I had somebody text into my Google Voice number for the PSICC was somebody turning a tip in for somebody they thought started a fire. So you can actually text into that Google Voice. So if you get a text, don't be surprised. I will tell you, though, when you make a phone call out or you text out, it's going to come from your phone number. So if somebody texts into your cell phone and you respond, your cell phone is going to go to that person. Yes.
All right, so I did hit the personal. It says the account is not set up. You access the Play Store on your app, so you go ahead and set it up on your phone and get away from sync to each other.
So it's wanting you to download the app to your computer now.
Yes, it said install on your computer, and when I did that, it says it's not associated with a device, and it wants me to go to the App Store on my phone.
Can you go to, do you have the option to go to Google Legacy?
I haven't tried it.
Give that a try. So we have a student that is trying to create a Google Voice number, and Google is wanting them to download the app for Google Voice. So we're going to kind of work through that for you guys that aren't here in the building. So So while you're doing that, I'll keep going, and we'll work through that. So texting, it records it in here, and one of the good things about Google is this caches phone calls, this caches voicemails, texts, in addition to Drive. And so when you have a fire and you create a Google account, one of the most important things, as we all know, is documentation, right? So we want to document everything that we do. So when you work within that Google that Google group, the apps, everything is cached into this account. And so when I turn a fire over to the home unit, I can give them the password and they can access everything that's been done.
I just want to add, if anybody's having any issue getting in their Gmail accounts and things, one thing you should know about these is if you have Chrome, everything will work better. If you're trying to work in Internet Explorer,
doesn't.
It won't access it. And what you'll see is you'll be able to get into it, but things like documents in Google Drive, you won't see what I see when I'm using Chrome, because Chrome is a Google tool. Internet Explorer is not. You also, so try to download Chrome. You don't have to worry about it right this minute. Maybe during the practice session, if you don't have Chrome, you should use Chrome, just as a warning. Because if some of these things aren't showing up or you're having trouble, it's probably because you're trying to you're access it in Internet Explorer.
Thank you. I don't use Internet Explorer at all for much. It's pretty bad when it comes to some of these programs that we use. When I try to get into, I believe it's Voice in Chrome, it tells me that I need to log in, even though I'm logged in. And then you try to log in and it says you're not logged in, retry. And it's just this loop of you get absolutely nowhere. So I don't even use it. So yeah, here's an example. Here's this weird email of somebody that wanted money for the fire. So everything is cached. Our crews, or not just our crews, but if we send PIOs out into the field, they can send us pictures back via text from their phone. And so we get a lot of pictures that way. At home, crews that are doing pile burning or RX burning, they send us pictures to the Google account. So we can pull those up and post them, and we don't have to be there. And then again, history. It just caches everything that we do. There is a Google Voice app for your phone, which is what they want you to download. Doesn't have all the options that, at least the last time I tried to play with it, it doesn't have all the options that we could get here on the computer version. Alright, so I know we kind of just glossed over voice. And if we have more if you guys have more questions, we can work on it some more, but I want to keep moving along with the Google stuff. So Google Drive is the other thing that we use. So within Google Drive, it's just like your hard drive. You can have files, folders. Within those file folders, you can have other folders, so it works the same. The big thing with Google Drive is that you can share files. So you can see on this one here, the little person. Those are files that we've shared with folks. And you can go in and share with anybody really that you want. We're going to go through some of the file sharing. We're going to go through some of the document sharing as well. You can share links to documents in Google. So to create a folder, you have this new button up on the left there, right up here. You can create, again, folders. You can create a new document. So within Google, Google Docs is like Word. Google Sheets is like Excel. And then slides are a picture function that you can do a little slideshow, so it's PowerPoint type thing. So you can create it right into Google Drive, and when you do that, it starts a document in Google Drive, and it houses it there. So as you type, it auto-saves. It's a very nice feature, and then you don't have to put it on your hard drive and then upload it again. You can start a document in Google Drive. You can see here the difference, the W here. So that is a Word document. That's a file that I've uploaded. If you click on that uploaded document, it brings the file up. Go ahead.
I just want to throw in, this will take us back because I said there's a delay. Just so you know, there's a question about Google Voice. Does it work better to text photos to Google Voice than to download them straight to Drive? So I don't think so, but you do more Google Voice than I do.
So I think it depends on the application. I think it's easier for somebody to send it from the field, definitely. But I don't think you get as good quality a picture that comes through in a text. I think if somebody's pulling that off of the phone straight into your hard drive, I think you get the same size picture that they took. But if you send it via text, it's going to be a smaller file. That could be good and bad too. But we use it more of a function for people that are out in the field sending pictures back to us instead of them having to come in and at the end of the day and bring those files to us. Let me know if that doesn't answer their question, Serena. So back to the document. So within Word, you bring this up. This again is in the cloud. It's in that Google Drive. I cannot click in and edit this at all. So this doesn't let me do anything. You can see it, but you have to download it here. So you have all your functions. You can print it. You can download it. You can move it. You can share it. Those are all the things you can do with it, but you cannot edit that file. So, let's see. We're going to move this into a Google document. So I'm going to open it now with Google Docs, and this is going to turn it into a Google document rather than a Word format. We're going to be able to edit it when it does that. So now this is in Google Drive, and now I can edit this. It's a Google Doc. So now I have two versions in my Google Drive. I have a Word document, and now I have a Google Doc. So you have to be careful when you do that, because if I edit this now, you can see right here where it says all changes are saved in Drive. Watch how quickly it does this. So it's one move and it's saving it. So now my two documents are different, right? So if somebody goes in and wants to download the most current version and they download the Word version, they're not going to get the most current version. So you really have to pay attention to saving your documents and having two copies in there. One of the things Chris mentioned to me this morning was if you have, again, a Word document, so you're working on a press release, and usually you go in with a press release and you change the stuff for the next day, right? If you bring in a Google document and or a Word and you turn it into a Google document, and that's Monday's press release, and you go in there and you start making edits for Tuesday's press release, it's going to save those changes as Monday's press release. So you want to make sure you save a copy and you work in that copy, because the minute you get into that Google document, that's going to save it to your hard drive. It's going to save all those changes pretty much immediately.
Yeah, just what I usually do is if I change something into a Google Doc, I then delete the Word doc, because I know I'm going to be I just get rid of the Word doc. I probably have it on my computer somewhere, but I get rid of the Word doc and I work in the Google Doc. And like she's saying, make sure you save today's press release, save a copy of it, and edit the copy, because otherwise yesterday, I've done this, I can't tell you how many times. I go in like you do in Word, you just edit yesterday's, you get halfway through, you go, oh, I should save this as the new date, and you do, and now you still have the old one, and you have saved the new. It doesn't work that way in Google Docs. You have to make a copy, edit the copy, because you're editing an original. So just make sure that you do that, and otherwise you'll be missing an entire day of press releases because you just edited the whole thing into today. So.
And when you're working with a team and you are not on that team, make sure you know what they want, how they want their stuff to be done. So some teams don't want that Google document created and edited in there because it can have the differences. So even though you have a preference of how you want to work, make sure you're doing it the way that the team operates, just to keep everything clean. Otherwise, you start losing documents pretty quickly. Okay, so you can see here this this little logo. It looks a little bit different than the Excel sheet. Same color, but this one is the Google version. So that one is not an Excel spreadsheet. That's one that's a Google document. And again, that little logo in the top left is going to be a little bit different. And this is one we can edit into and keep. Gonna be Vanna. And what other files? PowerPoint slides. Do you use slides? Google Slides?
I have, if I'm building a PowerPoint for something, I use Google Slides.
Okay.
Did you go over creating a document in Docs as opposed to bringing one in and converting it?
I talked about it, but I didn't do it. Would you like me to do it?
Sometimes things with a lot of formatting, sometimes press releases we do have boxes and charts and, all the 209 data is in one box and, you have a lot of data and charts. When you bring that into a Google Doc and you convert it to a Google Doc from a Word document, sometimes the formatting just gets all completely wonky. So if you know you're working in Google Drive anyway, sometimes it's easier to just create your press release in Google Docs. Then you can always download it as a Word document if you want to. But if you create it in Docs, you won't have that problem. Like even bringing in something with tabs, like bullets on it, the tabs get wonky. So you have to undo it and recreate them with the tabs in Google Docs, and then it will look all right. It will download fine. They just don't always upload quite as well. So if you know you're going to use it and you're going to, sometimes editing, and it's nice to have things in there because if say on my team, if the IC wants to see it, he has access. I can send him the link and he can edit right online. And then we don't have to do the email back and forth or walk around try to find him. He just can edit it on his phone if he's at dinner or wherever. So it's handy to use for mutual editing. But there are some things you have to watch.
I don't want my IC in my drive. So this is how this was creating a Google document. This was the Google Docs version. So again, that's going to be housed in your drive. So you can share it here. So you want to name the file. And you can see already that showed up in the background here, all changes saved in Drive. So that's how quick it is. And I haven't even really done anything. But you can save it as test here. And then, so this is how you share things. And this is going to be, you can access this a few different ways. But these are the typical share settings that we want to go over here with all these documents. So when you hit share, you can share it with people. You can share it with email addresses and names. And I think that goes for the Google, for Google names, right? Names in the Google system.
Well, you could, if you want to share a link of an editable document, they have to have Gmail. You have to send it to their Gmail account. Okay? If you're just sending a Word doc or for something to somebody to look at, you can send it to like their Forest Service account because they can open a Word doc, but they can't get into a Google Doc. You can only do the Google Docs in Gmail. So you have to remember what you're trying to do and send the correct link depending on how they're going to open it and what email you send it to.
Okay, so up in the upper right here, here's your get a shareable link. And this is, again, going to be with any of the documents you're going to share. And you can do this for photos, you can do this for PDFs, you can do this for all kinds of Google files. So, once I clicked on that, it says link copied to my clipboard. Now link sharing is on. But at this point, only anybody with a link can view. So anybody with this big long link can view that document. But what you want to do is you want to go to this drop down, because sometimes that doesn't always work, and sometimes you want a document available to the public. So you drop that drop down menu and you can change the access here. So if you turn it off, only specific people can access, and those are people that can access that folder. Anyone with the link can edit. Anyone with the link can comment, which Google Docs has a comment feature. Anyone with the link can view. We still don't see the public one, right? So we go to more. Now, if we change it to this top one, anybody in the public can view it on the web. Again, and now it's on this anyone with a link and then specific people. So you have to go deep into this menu to get it to the public section. So we want to be able to make this public. And then
Notice right here at the bottom, this is important. Anyone can access it, and they don't have to sign in. That's what you want, but you don't want them to be able to edit. You want them to just be able to view it. So it's important to remember that.
And for our purposes, you typically don't want people to comment either, because it's not something you're going to monitor. Okay, so now we saved it. Link sharing was updated. Now, if you want to post this to social media, yes.
If you, when you were talking about earlier, you said it's the IC, if you wanted it to edit, you would have to change that.
Yes, you would pick the, remember back at the other window it said you could send to a specific person? Oh, the question was, if you wanted to send to your IC, would you have to change the link sharing, the how you were sharing it? Now, yes, because you would have to make it so he could edit it if you want him to, him or her. But you just have to go back to the one before that says for a specific person, and then you change, you put in who
Down
the specific person is, and then you change, click on that one, and then you give them edit capability, and he should be able to do that. But you're going to have to send it. He's got to have a Gmail account, so because you can't do that editing in a Forest Service account or any state account. Okay, so we have everyone on my team. I know all their Gmail accounts if I need them to edit something, and we work on a lot of things in Google Docs or in FireNet. And but you got to know how to set the sharing permissions.
Okay. So we want to share this on the internet. We want to share this on Facebook. We want to share it on Twitter. That's a pretty long link, right? So one of the things we can do, and one of the things that we do, oops. So you copy that. You can go into one of these tinyURL or bit.ly services, and you can enter and shorten that link. So we've gone from that here to this. Much better, right? So if we bring that link over, it's going to take up a lot less space and it's going to be a lot cleaner when you put it on social media. So I just clicked on that tinyURL, and that's where it brought me. So right to the document. So those tinyURLs are very helpful. And then you can go back and copy and paste those and reuse that again. So it's there. That's the tinyURL to that document. And then again, bit.ly. What are the other services that exist, Chris? tinyURL and bit.ly are the two.
Yeah, bit.ly are the main ones, and there used to be Google GOO.GL, I think is what it was, but I think that one went away.
Okay.
But if anybody online or anybody, does anybody in here use a different one? What do you use? Go.usa.gov as a URL
I've heard
shortener?
of that, yeah. I haven't used it, but I've heard of it.
And anybody else have used something different? It's just nice to have, some have an automated way to do it. They give you they say, would you like to shorten the URL, and you can just use that. But I like this one because of the ability to make a custom alias and name it something, not have some wonky set of numbers that I later go back and look at it and I don't know what the link was to. I have to open it to see what it went to. If you just name it today's Monday update AM or whatever you want to do, you'll know what it is.
Okay, so one of the other things that we use in Google, or why we use Google, is so when we create social media accounts for fires, we can use the email here. So if we create a Twitter account, we can create that Twitter account using the fire's email. Makes it a lot cleaner that way. And again, when you turn the package over to the home unit, they have everything that they need there, and they can access. There's a password issue, so it makes it easier to create your social and media accounts there. Again, the other social media one is being able to link these files and do this tiny URL. So you're able to link press releases, you're able to link maps, you're able to link all kinds of different things that you can post. And so again, that just brings it right back to the Google account. So one of the other functions, and I'm going to ask Chris here to talk about it because it's an important function. One I have really rarely used, but it's called VOST, V-O-S-T. How many of you guys have heard of what a VOST person is? 2 in the room. And I think it's probably about the same, I'm sure, those folks watching at home. Do you want to talk about VOST? Because I know you've used it.
Yeah, well, not only have I used it, I think I was the first person to ever use it on a fire back in 2011. VOST stands for Virtual Operations Support Team, VOST. And and it has to do with Google Drive because this is the primary function for a VOST. What this is a group of volunteers, people that you know and trust, that you build this team of volunteers, and they can be from anywhere. My VOST for a while had people in Chile, someone in England, someone in Australia. It doesn't really matter where you are. It's virtual, right? It's a virtual team supporting the PIO effort. So the first time I used it was on the Shadow Lake fire in 2011, and I had this VOST that had been, a guy had started the idea in emergency management, especially in emergency management, but he had this VOST ready to go, but no incident to use it on, and I had an incident with no VOST. So we got together, and I had 17 people that helped me do all the social media work on a fire for 21 days, 24 hours a day. So all of a sudden, my staff was enormous. I only had 4 people with me on the ground, but I had this enormous group of people that was in the background that was able. They didn't write anything. They had no public face. No one knew they were there, and they didn't write posts. I still wrote all the posts, but then I would push it to them, or I would say, the press release is updated on InciWeb. They'd go to InciWeb, they'd get it, they'd download it, they'd post and populate all the rest of the social media. And they also, even more powerful, was they were my eyes on the ground. They would watch all our social media sites, and they would let me know if something was happening, if something went wrong, if there was somebody who was making a comment that I should pay attention to. So they did all the monitoring for us. So having 17 people doing your monitoring means you hear about it, everything that happens. And I did get some good intel from, there was somebody who had posted some pictures of one of our fire camp trucks that was lost in the woods somewhere, and saying, oh, fine, they're driving over bridges that are antique. We don't even let school buses drive on them, and if they can't even find the fire, how are they going to put this thing out? I mean, it was one of those things that could have spun up into something not great. So we sent the logistics people out, excuse me, to talk to them and to go see where the bridges were. Made sure that we posted them so no one was on them. We gave him all the information that he needed. Everything was fine. He posted a great. It went our way because we could pay attention, because we knew, and I knew because the VOST was watching. Now, when you don't have a VOST, you have people in your shop that have to monitor. But it's nice having people that are willing to help you. And so the hard part in fire we found is that, like any group of volunteers, they require maintenance. And they require that you take care of them and that you do some drills and you work on it. Well, emergency management is a full-time job, right? They're always there doing the job. A PIO on a fire, you're only there 2 weeks and then you're gone. So how do you, unless you're going to dedicate your off time to maintaining the VOS so you can use them when you're on a fire, it's a little complicated to be able to do that. But sometimes, if it's just, if you have 3 friends who you trust and you can say, I'm going to a fire, can you guys help me? And they say yes. And we make sure they have access to everything in Drive. We give them access to Drive so they can get here. Sometimes we use them for things like you would a remote PIO for social media. They would download the maps from the FTP site and upload them into our Drive account for us while we were at morning briefing. I mean, they can do work while you're not even there. They can do it overnight. They can do it whenever the stuff becomes available. So it's a handy idea. I can talk to you more about it later if you have an interest in it.
Do you give them keywords to look for when you're asking them to monitor?
Yeah, so the question is with the VOS, do we give them keywords that we want them to monitor? And the answer is yes, because I tell them there are certain things I don't care about. Like somebody saying, I hate the Forest Service. Well, we hear that all the time, so I don't need to hear that kind of thing. I need to know if there's trends towards something, like I might, if we see trends towards something negative, like if there's a lot of conversation about yellow shirts in neighborhoods looting evacuated houses, we need to deal with that. So that kind of thing I need to know. So I do give them, I say just, generally take a look at things. And if we start to see trends or we see something you think I should pay attention to, we use a combination of Google Docs and we use Skype. And on Skype, I'd have Skype on my tablet, work on my computer, and I could watch them. They talk to each other on Skype. It's the same span of control. I only deal with my lead of the VOS. The VOS all talks to their lead. So their lead, I watch what he and I or she and I talk, and I say, look for this thing if I think I hear something, or the IC tells me something we need to look for, and then they give them instructions on how to search for things. So yeah, I try to give them some parameters. Sometimes the first couple times it takes a little effort and they learn what you do and don't want to watch out for.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so again, having everything in that drive gives other people access. And so you can all work together remotely. You don't have to be in the same room. For us, we use it. Our plans folks will upload maps for us in there and do our daily maps in the middle of the night when they're working. So let's talk a little bit about folders. We talked about sharing documents. Talked about where you can find information and all the settings on documents. But now we can talk about folders. So we can do the same thing with folders. You can share them. You can give people edit access. So then here, these are photos that we have. So we have several different fire photos. We have some bear photos and then some miscellaneous. And within this drive, because we use it for fire stuff, we have incorporated, we took several of our large fires and we've continued on our social media pages. Stuff with like bear. So when the bear teams go and we're still uploading social media, our PIOs have access to all these photos. So we try to keep what we can on our large fires even after the incident management team is left, so we can access them. So here's PIO stuff from the bear team itself. Let's see what the settings are here. So this has already been turned on in the settings where anybody with a link can edit that. So this one is not public, but they were able to get a link so they could send it to other folks to use that photo. There's also an advanced tab here at the bottom right. And that's going to give you a lot of the same setting. It's just it shows up a little different. So here you can share it via social media as well, not just with the link. But what that's going to do when you click on it, it's going to go to the account that you're logged into. But it's going to use that big long URL. So if you don't shorten it, you're going to get the big long one. And then again, here's where you can change the access to that. Shows you who the owner is for that, so we're the owner of that file. And then a couple more settings down here. You can invite people. They can organize, add, or edit in those files. You can control that. Or you can make it just a view only. And then this box down here, prevent editors from changing access and adding new people. So you can block that function to let people who have edit access, you can block them from going in and adding more people to that file. It's just some more security. Within FireNet, which we're going to talk about later, these menus get even deeper with security. And there's more functions on theirs. So this one, let's see where we're at here. So again, we're the owner on that one. We can add here, do my FireNet. And then I can organize, add, and edit. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And you can see down here at the bottom, notify people. You can add a message to that. So if you're going to send somebody a link, you can add a message to them to let them know what it is you want them to do with that or whatever it is. And then you can also send a copy to yourself of whatever that is that you're sending. And then you can send it. And so, let's see. It didn't pick up my FireNet as Google. So here you have an option as well to send an invitation. The recipient must log on with a Google account within 14 days to edit. Anyone with this invitation will have access. So that's how you guys all got access to your student folders for this class. Or here it's send the link, no sign-in required. So you can change that for people who don't have a Google account and they won't have to sign in. We'll go ahead and just do that. So I get a copy in the email, and then in this email, and then my account will get an email. So the other things that you can do, you can move these around within the file structure. And then you can download the file or the photos themselves. And these photos don't look like they're in any file. These are just in the main photos file. So let's see. So you can edit those in photo apps here. Those are the suggested apps. Even though that's a JPEG, it's giving me the option to open it in Google Docs or to put it in a photo editor. Let's see where we're at here. That one was already too. So they've given everybody, or they've turned on access with the link to all these photos. So these are files that we had a prevention team come in, and they put all of their stuff in here and gave several people access that came in and worked on that team. There's no computer syncing. So shared with me. So these are files that people have shared with this account. So they've gone into their sharing function and they've added me or this account to that sharing function. So you can see here's maps here for a Christmas tree sale. There's flyers. There's drone information. Lots of different stuff that people have shared with us that we can access and use. And those are going to be the shared with me. Shared drives are very handy. Look, there's t-shirts from when I was here 3 years ago. So lots of different links, YouTube stuff. Do you want me to talk about YouTube and how it's linked? So YouTube is linked to Google. We use that function on Fire, so we are not sharing if we upload a video to YouTube, we're uploading it to the Fire account. Sometimes I've seen PIOs upload a YouTube to their personal account, and then they share that link, and whoever watches that sees that it's the person's personal account rather than it being the Fire account. So YouTube, if you're doing videos, comes in very handy to be able to have that access. Within FireNet, we have access to YouTube now. And so that has that Fire name, and it's independent of anybody's account. So YouTube is a good tool, and we'll talk about YouTube later this week. So it's right here. And again, if it doesn't show up in your menu, you can go to More, and you can go to Even More. So the one thing with Google is they're really trying to get people to download apps. A couple years ago, they were trying to get everybody to join, what was the Google Facebook? Google Plus. And no matter what you did, it would always make you join Google Plus. That's gone away, thankfully. But now, when you get into these apps, they want you to download the app to your computer. And sometimes you have to try to get around those. I know with voice, it's a hard one to get around. But that's one hang up with Google. That's one of the things that I found. So here's YouTube. If you have an Android phone and you log into a Fire account with your Google, it's going to want to pull your phone info into that account when you log in, because that's how Android works. So be careful with that too. I've run into that a few times, and I'm more of an Apple person, so I don't really know how to navigate around that. We've had a few people that have tried to log into the Fire Google account on their personal phone, and it was wanting to upload everything in their phone. So I don't know if you run into, because you're an Android person.
I'm Android. I only use Android. I don't like Apple at all. So because all the tools I use are Google based, and Apple and Google don't like each other very much. Mm-hmm. So since all the platforms are usually there, my tablet and everything is on Android. But and this goes to a lot of people have this issue with wanting to have an account that is not their personal one that they log in with. Now, you got to do whatever you're comfortable doing. I've been for 30 years now logging in with my personal information. I've never had an issue. When I log in, I create, in past Fires, there is a Gmail account for the Fire, but I add my personal Gmail so that I can access it while my personal Gmail is open, because I have all my stuff on my drive that's associated with my personal Gmail account. All my things are in that drive for Fires because I use it all the time. So I have it. I make sure that I'm added so that I can log in. I can see the in this drop-down menu up here, so that I can access the Fire Gmail account and mine and toggle back and forth between the two, or I can access it from my personal account. And when I create a drive, often for the Fire, and things are shared from there onto the Fire Facebook page or Twitter account, it doesn't show anything about my personal information. Nothing. It never has, and it never will. It doesn't share what Gmail, what drive it's coming from. Now, if I send an email from my personal Gmail, it'll say my personal email. But if I'm sending an email, I go to the Fire account and I send the email from there. Okay, but the concern people have about creating, like, for instance, Facebook pages, you have to have a personal page in order to start one. I use my personal page. It never shows anywhere. Same with blogs, same with everything. So I don't think you have to worry about it. I've never had an issue. I know that some people have had issues, and they start a kind of a page for their forest that they use to access all the other accounts. To me, that's just another account I have to juggle, and I just can't. I got too many. I can't bounce back and forth between all these accounts. I just do it all from my own account. But that's up to you. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I said, I'm not familiar with the Android products, and I I seem to struggle trying to teach people that stuff. So with me, I like to keep my personal stuff separate, so I don't want my iPhone talking to Google, period. So that's just a personal preference, but unfortunately that puts me at the disadvantage of not really understanding how the full suite of Google products works with your phone. But I know that they sync, and I know that everything goes back and forth to the accounts. All right, so a couple other Google products that I will just mention because they seem to continue to come up is Google Groups. How many of you have used Google Groups? Excellent. One person in here. And you'll hear me continue to talk about FireNet. And again, we'll hit FireNet later, but just to point out, FireNet has some disadvantages, and when we're trying to work through the FireNet, one of the things that keeps coming up is, oh, just create a Google group. So Google group comes up. It's where you can put everybody in a group. Emails, you can send, it has an email for people to email into that group. It's got a place where you can do like chats and post information, and you can email out of that group. It makes it a little easier. So Google Groups is something I don't know much about. I think Chris has worked in it more than I, and she hasn't worked much in it at all. But it keeps coming up, especially with the FireNet issue. So Google Groups is something that's out there that you may want to learn a little more about. I know I need to learn more about. The chat function in Google, do you use that at all? The chat function?
In Drive, there's a chat function. I use the chat function in Drive.
Yeah.
Oh, Hangouts?
Well, yeah, there's a chat. There is a chat function, and it's through Hangouts.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes Hangouts is nice for, if we need a quick meeting, and the Forest PAO, but you have to have a Gmail, they have to access through a Gmail account, so they can't access through another account. So it depends whether, sometimes the Forest PAO, and maybe we have remote PIOs working on something, and we want to all have a quick meeting, we can use Hangouts to do that. Or because the problem with the Forest Service Skype is that you have to be Forest Service, so you can't share that with anybody. So this is a generic tool that lets, no matter what agency you're with, you can all get on. But you access it also through
This menu.
through the little waffle up in the
You
corner.
have to have a Google account to do any of this.
Yeah, if you want to use these tools, the question is, do you have to have a Google account? The answer is yes. But a Google account is not hard. One Google account gives you access to all of these things. Everything you can use if you have one Google account. You don't have to ever use the Gmail if all you want to use is YouTube. It doesn't matter what you want to use. Gmail is one of the things that's on there, but you do have to have that account. So I don't know how you get around these days without having some kind of Google account. Everything is attached to Google. But most people have some account that they can use. Sometimes they'll say, well, only my personal one. I'm like, give me your personal one. No one's going to see it. And if we're just talking in a small group, we're going to see your name, but you're not sharing anything else.
Okay. Google Maps function. I've used Google Maps a lot when we get into Blogger, and we will get into that later. But Google Maps, you can pin a location on a map. I use that for us when we give the media information on where a fire's at. We can just put a pin on a map and upload that. Google Maps is also good for giving directions, so you can. It's a little more advanced, but with some of our stuff on the forest, we will QR code a location, and if somebody reads it with their phone, and it comes up in Google Maps, and they just hit go, and they can go to that place. So we have a lot of district offices and work centers in our fire briefing guide for people to do that, and we use maps a lot for that. And then within Gmail, so this is the one I want here. Yeah, it's in my fire one. So within Gmail, there's some limitations. which is where FireNet kind of came in for us on the PIO end. But with Google, you can fairly quickly, if you're sending to a big list, you can pretty quickly be tagged as spam with your Gmail. So if you're sending out emails to a long laundry list of contacts for the forest or for whoever the home unit is, and on day 2 you hit that maximum, you can no longer use that email for other than one person anymore. So what are the numbers on that, Chris?
Gmail one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not positive. I know that it's less than. I know that on FireNet you can send 10,000 recipients a day. Now that seems like a lot, unless you have a really busy fire and you have a list of 500 people. You can only send them so many emails, and then you're going to max out. And it's less than that on. It's something like, I want to say, like it's 500 emails, and that means 500 people. Well, if you have a list of 400 people, that means you can send them one email a day. I mean, you have to juggle it. Email, we have routinely run out of space, and it's always, I guarantee you, it's when you have an evacuation going on and you're trying to say it's and you're like, and it says and then you're shut down for 24 hours. You can't send any emails. You can still use all the other functions, but you can't send any other emails out, so you can get yourself in trouble. But FireNet does allow you more. It allows you, we'll talk about this more, but 2,000. They call it messages, which is emails, messaged emails, 2,000 of those instead of like 500, and to 10,000 recipients a day, which gives you a lot more space to work in.
So with email, that's one of the things as PIOs we've really struggled with, and we tried to use several different mail services, and it just didn't work. So FireNet's been great for that, but my thoughts on that, we're kind of in a digital age, and we have a lot of places people can go and get information. On my team, I hate sending emails. I really do. I hate those big long lists because we have to create those lists in our Gmail. We send those out every day. It's one more step when the person can go to one place and get all the information and get multiple updates. If I send an email, it's going to be our news release, and that's once a day. We typically do a lot more than that. We do posts on Facebook, we do Twitter stuff, we do community meetings, we do news conferences, pictures, and so I feel like we don't give enough information through email when somebody wants to get their information that way. Again, we'll talk about Blogger later, but Blogger's another way where they can get all their information, and they actually get an email. They can sign up and get an alert. They get one alert a day, and they can go in and get all the information. So email that's like a thorn in my side for me anyway. I want to move away from it because it just is one more step we have to do. When we're having to put stuff on InstaWeb, we have to put stuff on Facebook, we have to put stuff up on Twitter, if we do Blogger. So we've got all these places that we're doing all this stuff, saving JPEGs, saving PDFs, and you've got all the different types of files, and then you have to make an email, and then you have to, put everything into the email and text the body, and I get it, but I hope anyway with my team we're moving away, and I understand, with 4 supervisors and in a small list, but I hope that we get away from these hundreds of people that sometimes we go to a forest and we get literally like 5 pages of contacts.
I totally agree. We're moving away from that too. Email has become old school. We don't. Did you have a question?
Well, it sets up an expectation.
Yes,
it does set up an expectation.
Right. It's yeah. The comment is it sets up an expectation that people are going to get an email for this. And, like Dawn, I'm a little more direct about saying, okay, I can send you one press release a day, but it's like a newspaper. It's going to be yesterday's news because, remember, when we send it in the morning, it's from the planning meeting the day before. And that's all they're going to get till the next time. I'm like, if you want current news, I can't send you a one line every time something happens. But I am going to put it on Twitter and Facebook. So if you really want to know what's going on, if they say, I'm not on Facebook, you don't have to be on Facebook. The accounts we set up are community. You don't have to have an account. They're community pages like a restaurant uses so that people can see their menu and stuff. You don't have to be on Facebook. You don't even have to be on Twitter to get what we're tweeting, which we'll share with you later. So those are no longer a reason to send an email. And here's the other part of it. in an email, the reason we sent email, and this will take you to this, but the reason we sent an email a lot of times was so that, for instance, I'd send it to the frontliner at a forest so that they could print up with a PDF of the press release, so they could print it off and have copies of it where they were, or so that people could then forward their email to other people so they had it, okay? So what do you do if you're sharing something on Facebook and you want to send it to people, but they're not on Facebook? Okay, so then the answer to that question is we always have a PDF linked every time we post something, a map or an update on Facebook. We have a PDF link that says for an emailable, downloadable emailable PDF of this document, click here. That way you can share it on your Facebook page. But if for people who aren't on Facebook, you can download it and email it if you want to. I mean, so we make it. We've taken care of the main reason for having things, on email. So we really do. I agree. We discourage people from, you're just not going to get really good coverage. But some people want it. But I try to never run into that limit because I don't have a list that big.
Yeah, I try to not run into that limit too. I try to limit the emails, but we still go to places that really want us to do that. And if that's the request of the home unit, I mean, we try to discourage it, but there's times we still get into it. So FireNet's come in handy for that. But the other functions for Gmail are just internal stuff. I mean, we can email from, like plans. They always have our Fire email, and they send us all of the maps through Gmail. Then we could just download it. Sometimes we will do, when people want to do thank yous or people want to donate, instead we let them send a email into us with a thank you to the firefighters, and we can post those up on the boards in camp, or we can read some of those or post them to social media. So lots of reasons you can get emails in. We try to limit emails going out. If you do utilize the Gmail, make sure that the team that you're working with gives you how they want that organized, and keep those organized. Again, just like the voicemails, if you click that and it says unread, make sure that that's taken care of, or you follow whatever procedure that team has for resolving that email, or however you want that, whatever that email is. If you don't, then make sure you mark it unread so somebody addresses it. That's the major thing, is things get lost very quickly when you have a lot of information coming in and out. And if you're not putting those in folders, you're not taking care of things and having a system of how that works, stuff's going to get lost and the balls are going to get dropped.
It really works well to have one person, at least one person a day, or one person overall, whose job it is to manage this account. And nobody else who goes in there, you're not allowed to open anything, or if you do, you have to mark it unread. Like if it came to you, if it was addressed to me or it was addressed to Dawn, we'd open it and then we'd move it over into whatever file we have over here that labels. You create labels. And these are things from the public or agency emails or things for the leads or office stuff, it's just the plans asking you something. And then once you've done it, I move it into that file, because this is a nightmare. It's a nightmare if you don't manage it. I have come into fire. I know you have too. You come into a fire, you're the third team in. I know some of this online people. I know Sarah Douglas Gracie, Rich Roos, I know they've had this habit. You come into a fire, you're the third team in, and no one has done anything with any of the emails in here. You've got, down at the very bottom, it says how many pages. Here you have 1 through 39 of 39 emails. But instead it's 1 through 39 of 7,000 emails. And no one has deleted anything, no one has filed anything, nothing. It's a nightmare, and it can get you can't find anything. So I can't tell you, having somebody that's sole job it is to take care of this is a really good idea. And the first thing you do when you get there is figure out the file structure and what they have, and make it what you need it to be, and rearrange it and get it. And then I try to make it. This is only my preference, so that everything showing in this part of Gmail is just today's. Everything else is filed somewhere. Opened and filed. You can't put it in a file till you've dealt with it. So you got to deal with everything. You can't just shove it in a file. No one will know what's in there. So you got to deal with it and shove it in the file. But I try to tell the person who's handling it, manage it so that you deal with all the stuff on here is dealt with, except today's. You can leave today's up as long as you need to, and then we move everything over the next day. We start clean.
For my team, my deputy has major OCD about inboxes, and so that is his deal. Like, I don't even touch it. He goes in and he makes it what he wants, and he sets the rules for everybody because that's his thing. Like, he's Facebook inboxes, that's even worse than regular Gmail inboxes. He is just crazy about making those clean and organized. So make sure that that's something you have one person doing. You assign it to that person, and inevitably I'll get in there and I'll see an email and I'll click it to read it, even though that's not my job for the day. But I always mark it unread. Just make sure you do that. If you click one and you don't handle the situation, then mark it unread. There's a mark it as. There's not. Yeah, the color's not here like I'm used to seeing. So that was the email I sent this morning. And then go back. And there's your mark it as unread right here. So you click that and it bolds it back.
What are some examples of the folders you were talking about on the left that you might set up?
So the question was, what are some examples of folders that you might set up on the left for organization? Important, like your super important top of the list stuff that if you've got, I don't know, a property owner that has a pretty sensitive issue that's being dealt with, you can organize stuff in there. What are some of the things?
I would say I probably use, most commonly I have media. You know, so if I get an email from a media wanting something, deal with it, slide it in there. It's just for the record. I have usually agency, because there's a lot between the Forest Soup or the PAO and myself or another agency person wanting something, so I slide it in there. Photos, people send us photos, and sometimes we don't get to downloading them right away. So I try to always go in there, and right from here you can download directly to Drive. So we always have a folder in Drive that's for photos as well. So I try to download them and then move it over. I usually have
cooperators, I think.
Yeah, or cooperators, some kind of cooperator person. We have public, and that is questions we get from the public.
For thank yous, we'll do a thank you for putting everything in there.
I'm trying to think of what other ones. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I
But
know.
what you do is it just grows and grows because you get one that doesn't fit into the other ones, and you go,
Make a
oh,
folder for
let me
that.
make a folder for it. And so we stick it. Maps, that's another one. We make a map folder.
Oh, yeah.
Because plans will send you a bunch of maps, and we just slide them in there. Or 209s. Plans will send you the 209s. We have a 209 folder, and we slide them in there. A lot of those things are getting downloaded to Google Drive. And so you have to sort of make a call on the team that you're on whether once you've downloaded it to Drive and you have it, do you need to save the email? Especially when it's internal to the fire. External to the fire, for the record, is probably a good idea to save it. Internal to the fire, like just between plans and you or something like that, work with the lead on your team and decide if they want you to save it there. But it depends also if you have a policy that as soon as it comes in, you download it so that you know it's saved where you need it in your Drive.
In our team, we do. We download it. The first thing we do is download it. We make sure we have a PDF, and we make sure we have a JPEG of it. And then we go on our way. But that's always the first thing we do is we make 2 copies, put those in the Drive, and then we do delete them at some point because Plans keeps their copy, so we don't need to keep a copy when we turn everything over. So that will not end up in our Drive other than stuff that we attach to news releases. But Plans will have their own. On our team, Plans keeps everything for their own record, so we can delete all that stuff. But again, it's how the team wants things done, and make sure that you find out what the team wants and then go from there. So we've got a little less than 15 minutes. Do we want to do some questions? Is there anything else that you want to see covered, Chris?
I guess the last thing I want to add is that the importance of Drive is really in the end for documentation. I mean, it gives you useful ways to interact with people, especially if you have PIOs who are not on site or PAO wants to access or whatever. But remember that for documentation, if you're using Gmail, at the end, at some point, you're going to have to download everything in here to a jump drive. And then if your team is using FireNet, you're probably using FireNet. If they're not, that jump drive becomes part of the documentation package. So you have to make sure in plenty of time to order a jump drive that you have that's like 32 or 64 gigs that you can download stuff. Before you download it, as she was just saying, as Don was saying, you only have to save for documentation those things that you generated. You didn't generate the map or the 209. We just have them in there for convenience. I just dumped those folders. Just get rid of all that stuff. And remember though, it's not, the hard part is you can't, well, you could. The emails. It's hard to save all the emails in your folders, but you can save everything in Drive pretty easily. You just drag the folders off to the jump drive. It takes a while. Sometimes I start it at night and I let it go all night. Then I come back the next day and it's on the jump drive. So it also sometimes shuts down in the middle of it, and then I come in the morning and it only did one folder because something went wrong. But it takes a while to do that. But that's what's handy about it too, is you've got to save all the stuff in Drive. Goes in your final documentation. We
Typically do a file structure, and I forgot to mention that when we create that account and when we get into Drive, we have a file structure that we just slide over and we start putting everything into that file structure. And then before we leave or turn it over to another team or the home unit, we make sure we have everything for each day into that file structure there, and then we make sure it is in our paper doc box too.
Can you go over again how you share folders with other people?
Just repeat the question.
The question is, can I go over how I share folders with other people? And so you have folder here. So this one, you right click and you're going to go to the share. And then you can either share it with the shareable link. You can put in their email address or their name, or you can make it public, and that goes for the whole folder.
Sometimes you want to share with using the email that you're set up. You know, the Fire email. You want to send it to someone from that email, so you just grab the shareable link, and then you take the link over to the Gmail and paste it in and send that to somebody. And I don't worry in emails about, I don't shrink it to a tiny URL. I just send the whole thing, and I don't go to the problem. I only do that for public sites.
Are there any benefits to using Google Photos rather than storing all the photos on the drive?
So the question is there any benefit to doing Google Photos rather than just putting photos in a folder? On the drive. Are you talking Google Drive or your hard drive?
Yeah, Google Drive.
On the Google Drive. I believe there is a function in Story Maps where you can use Google Photos. Or is that Flickr? It's Flickr.
Yeah, I guess
Okay.
part of it is too.
So
Yeah. There is a reason, I think.
maybe sharing them with the public. If you allow media to download photos, there's some folks out there that have really good cameras, photographers that are on some of the crews, and they'll share photos, and we can allow the media to download those photos. Other than that, do you see any reason to do Google Photos?
I just know that when we use the photos to feed to a lot of other things, and we can't access Google Photos, you'd have to. Well, let's put it this way. I often have daily photos. Like every time we send a tweet or post something on Facebook, we put a photo with it because things with photos get shared more often. So we choose some daily photos. So there's a special folder that daily photo. I don't want people going in the whole thing and picking them. I want to pick them from there. We have photos that come in from other people, and we want to give credit to those people, and you can't do that in Google Drive. You can't store them with the credit information attached. We could say Bob's photos in a folder. Have a big photo folder, and in it is Bob's photos, daily photos. We can identify all those folders. We can divide things out. And then when you need to, you could, I guess, for in general, to upload to Facebook, you can't do it right from Google. You have to download it to your computer and upload it to Facebook. So you'd have to go into Google Photos, find the photo you wanted. And remember, we try to edit through photos that are in the folders. We only save the good ones. Google Photos saves everything. I mean, have you ever looked at your Google Photos off your phone? You're like, oh my gosh, did I take all? These are horrible, and but it saves everything. So it's just, I think it's more organized, and I always look at the Google Photos as a backup. so that if for some reason I can't find a photo in one of the folders, or somebody said it was in there, and I can go back and and look at it in there. I don't use it nearly as much. Plus, I need, in order to make if you want to upload to Picasa or Flickr, I don't know if you can do it right from one of them. You can, because it's a Chrome application. I think it was Picasa, but I don't think they have it anymore. Well, sometimes on
Picasa's the Chrome product.
Right, and somehow I was just working on the memorial for Daniel Laird, who was killed in Texas. I was in Tahoe, and we were building a slideshow, and we couldn't. In Blogger, we used to build a slideshow because it's a Google product with Picasa, and it made this rotating slideshow, and it was no longer available to us. So we had to upload to the Flickr account, and then it was you could scroll through the photos yourself, but it wouldn't run the slideshow. But to access those photos, we had to upload them to Flickr, and we couldn't do it from a place. We had to download to the computer and upload to. So, you could do whatever works for you. I mean, if it works for you,
I don't use Google Photos.
I use it on my phone. I use
Right.
it personally. I don't use it. Usually use it on a Fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, and I get where Dawn and Chris are saying it's time to move away from email. But when our PIOs want to connect to the customer, and the customer wants email, I have email. And one of the things I ran into about 2 or 3 years ago, I was on a large incident in Oregon, and there was probably 300, maybe 500 email subscribers. And I say subscribers because we were using MailChimp.
Mm-hmm.
And that allows you to subscribe and unsubscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Not what you're saying, Dawn, well, I have to add and delete 200, 300. And I said, this is great. When I got my FireNet account, I started working with the FireNet administration and saying, do you have this function? And they said, yeah, maybe. and I could not figure it out.
So let me repeat the question for online. Is he saying, that there are times when you seem to need email, and one of the best emails to use, if you've ever tried it, is MailChimp, and I use MailChimp for a lot of things. But you were wondering if the MailChimp function is available in FireNet?
Yeah, well, there's two things.
Unsubscribe.
Oh.
So you're out
No.
of the loop. And the second thing was MailChimp Analytics, which you can track the stats of where your users are. And that was great.
So we're talking about analytics that are available through MailChimp, and the ads that subscribe, unsubscribe to that mail list in MailChimp. And that's only a MailChimp thing. It isn't available in Gmail or FireNet or any of those kind of things. It's just regular Gmail.
No.
So there may be, and realize we're not suggesting you don't use email at all. You're going to use email, and especially you need email for people to send you information. And of course you'll respond to public inquiries. We're talking about the giant lists of people you have to send the daily update to, or have to send you a picture and a map and an update every day, and they get it once a day. And I've had 2,500 people on a list. I mean, it's insane, the number of, because everybody wants their own personal email. That tended to be before we had so much stuff available online, better available than we do now. But MailChimp, I still use MailChimp sometimes, because remember, the nice thing about MailChimp is it's a push only. You can't reply to MailChimp. Now, MailChimp has its own limitations. It has limitations just like Gmail does of how many you can send out in a day. And so we were talking about one of the ways to get around this. One is Google Groups. And
Here we go again.
I keep thinking I'm going to figure out how to build a Google group. I know that Mickey Trost in Colorado has one for Colorado that she uses a Google group, shares it, has all the media, everybody on it. It took me forever to figure it out. And we couldn't add to it very easily. It was just, I swear there's got to be a better way. But Google Groups is the way Google does it. When they have to send, I ask them, will you lift the limit for fires? It's an emergency. Could you lift the limit on emails? And they said, no, build a group.
Create a Google group.
All right. So that's one way. Another way that I have done on Fire is if you buy a domain name, they don't ping your mail. They don't bounce it back to you if you have a domain name. And by a domain name, it means the end of your email will say @abcfire.com. So if you buy a domain name, now it's like $1 a month. So at times, I just go pay for it myself. I mean, if you can't figure out how to get the, I just go buy the domain name. Sometimes it can take a little while, and it does take some time to learn how to use it. So I suggest if you're going to do it, not nearly what it's taken Google Groups, but go and it can take a day or so to get it to populate, to come back to you. But there are ways kind of around it. But right now, FireNet and discouraging people from needing an email every day are the best ways we can think of, because FireNet has
FireNet worked great for us last year for sending emails.
Yeah. But again, we're not talking about that public one-on-one thing. That absolutely you're going to do. You're always going to respond to people. I'm just not going to add you to, if someone says to me when they send an email, could you just email me the stuff every day because I'd really appreciate it. We'll ask them, do you have any, if you have Gmail, you obviously have an online presence. You're online getting email, so they can't say, well, I don't do computers. I'll be like, yes, you do. You're on one now. And then say, there's a lot better ways to get information, and I try to give them the good, bad, and the ugly. If we email you, you're going to get it once of the day, and it's going to be yesterday's news. If you actually want to know what's going on, if you're in this community and you want to know, these other sites are a way better way to get that information. And then I walk them through how to do it. Sometimes, you get an older person or somebody who's not as versed in it. Okay?
Those are the ones at AOL.com.
Yeah, the ones that have AOL.com, exactly. You know by their email. Any other questions? So we have about a minute to wrap up this piece of it, and then we're going to take a break, and then we're going to practice. And we'll be around here to walk you through all of these things. But any other questions? Any online? Nothing online? Okay,
All
so
right.
go over your...
So when we come back, and those of you who are watching, if you want to practice... so we want you to use your own Gmail, or if some of you guys have FireNet, get those up and running, and you're going to upload a document into your drive, and you're going to change your sharing permissions as well as practice making a tiny URL.
I would say try sharing also with the person next to you to practice sharing something. Try sending it to their email. Try sending them a link. Change the sharing permissions. You just want to practice doing it out of the Drive account. If you are in and have access to the folder we shared with you, the student folder, there are some practice materials so you can practice download. If you don't have a photo or something, you're only sending it to yourself, so it doesn't, but if you need something, there are press releases in there. If you want to upload a Word document, practice changing it to a Google Doc, edit it, share someone else so you can both edit, then download it. You need to practice all of those tools, and we'll be here to help you do that. So online at home, do the same thing. Just
share
practice
those with your
things.
neighbors or your
Share them with a person
friends.
sitting next to you so that you can say, did you get that? So you can work with somebody that's kind of near you, or if you know someone across the room, just share it with them. We're going to take a 15-minute break here, and then we're going to practice, and then we're going to go to lunch. So people online, is it 1:15?
I'm missing that page, apparently.
It's what? Oh, 11, not 1. It's 11. Okay. So at 11:15 Eastern Time, we will be back, and we will start on the Facebook portion of what we're going to be learning.
I think it's 11.
Does it say 11? Oh, sorry, 11 o'clock. I thought it was. I was reading something else. Sorry. 11 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll be going live again, so go practice with Drive. And if you happen to already use FireNet, just practice in FireNet. But you can practice on either of them. So, okay, thank you. We'll see you later.